start yet. Okay, the session is being recorded. Okay, thank you for reading that off for me. So let's get going here. The first thing we're going to learn is the difference between hunger and appetite. And there is a difference between feeling hungry or having an appetite for something. If we reflect back to the first week of school, I asked you a question, why do people eat? And I said there's only one real answer: we should eat, and that's for energy. But there's hundreds of reasons why we do eat. Hunger is the physiological reason that we should eat. And that is because we need energy. So if we feel hungry, the brain is telling us it's physiological. So it's controlled by the human systems. The brain is telling you you need energy. That's what hunger is. So when we are low on particularly carbohydrates and fat, your brain will signal that you should be eating something. Your brain will spark hunger, and the part of your brain is the hypothalamus. It will tell you you should eat because you need energy. So it is a physiological sensation. The opposite of that is appetite. Psychologically, you want to eat. Did you ever feel really, really full?
Excuse
me?
And
then you see something that looked very appetizing, and you're like, I'm going to eat it anyway. So you don't need energy, but you eat anyway. That's what appetite is. It's like a psychological.
I don't think we can see the PowerPoint.
What is it?
I don't think we can see the PowerPoint, if there's a PowerPoint.
Thank you. You will in a second. Why did it stop sharing? Maybe when I started recording. I bet you when I hit that record button, it stopped sharing. Hold on a second. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I bet you when I hit record, it stopped the screen sharing. All right, well, again, you didn't miss much. It's just 2 short sentences here. Hunger is physiological. Your brain initiates that you should get energy. Appetite is psychological, and it really comes from our senses. We see something that looks good. We smell something that smells good. We think it's going to taste good, and it's totally psychological. Hundreds of reasons we have an appetite. Restaurants know that if they can get us to have an appetite, even if we're not hungry, even if we don't need energy, we still might eat. So they've been known to, play those tricks with colors, right? Fast food restaurants are a lot of time colored yellow and red, like McDonald's, yellow and red. Burger King. I even think Wendy's might even be yellow and red. But that's a psychological signal in our brains. Red is stop, and supposedly yellow is eat. It stimulates an appetite. Rumor has it sometimes the restaurants push out some smells into the environment. So you can drive by a fast food restaurant, smell it, and be like, oh, I want to go have one of those. You may not even need energy. You may not be hungry, but you still eat. So that's really the difference between hunger and appetite, right? One is physiological and one is psychological. Okay, so satiety is you feel full. Does anyone remember what kind of foods are better at signaling to our brain that we are full and we don't need to continue to eat? And which foods are bad at this? Does anyone remember? Which foods spark satiety the most? Go ahead.
Like the nutrient-rich foods.
Okay, and which nutrients are the best at it?
Like orange juice, rich bread, things that quickly kind of signal things in our body, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, which nutrients do you think are best at signaling satiety?
Protein and carbs?
Whole grains.
Whole grains would be a correct one. That's an example of a food, but if we reflect on what's in a whole grain, it's fiber, number one.
Oh.
Fiber sparks satiety. So that's the thing you want to have to feel full. Anybody else have another one besides fiber that you remember? Healthy fats, omega-3s, omega-6s, vitamins and minerals, and protein. The carbs are the lowest. The carbs themselves are really the lowest for satiety, especially the processed carbs like flour and sugar. When we eat flour and sugar, it does not cause satiety. Therefore, a person will still feel hungry. What your brain is looking for to stop hunger is fiber, healthy fat, protein, vitamins, and minerals. Okay? And where are we getting those kind of foods from? Give me an example now of a food that is loaded with fiber, vitamins, minerals, maybe a little bit of healthy fat, or a little bit of protein.
Oatmeal definitely makes you
Yes.
feel full quickly.
Yes, because oatmeal, if we examined it, we should be now able to tell what nutrients are in a food when we look at it. Because well, maybe you need a little bit more practice reading labels, but eventually you should start figuring this out. Oatmeal has.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was thinking trail mix is also a good thing because it has a mixture of all that. It has like the sugar, the fats, it has the nuts. I know like typically when people go hiking, they eat that to kind of give them a boost.
Yep. That is another example of a food that causes a lot of satiety. So we've got a lot of whole grains will do it. Nuts and seeds will do it. And that's really what's in either oats or the trail mix. You've got a lot of fiber, you've got a lot of vitamins and minerals, tiny bit of healthy fat, and they both have, believe it or not, they both have protein. We typically think protein is animal meat, but there is a lot of protein in whole grains and even in our nuts and seeds. It may not be a large quantity, but there is some protein in both of those things. And in oats, I think it's something like 8 grams of protein per cup, but you can look on either the ESHA website or on the package to see how many grams per serving. But those are good options, right? Are whole grains. What's another food example that might cause satiety beside whole grains? We've got whole grains, we've got nuts and seeds. What else? Think of your food groups.
Seafood.
Seafood would probably do it because it does have a lot of healthy fat and it does have protein, does have vitamins and minerals. So I would say yes to that one. What do we reach for when we're trying to get fiber besides whole grains, nuts, and seeds? What is another option for fiber?
Vegetables.
What is it?
Vegetables, and Anastasia said fruit.
Yep, fruits and vegetables, it is true. I'm going to raise my volume. I'm having trouble hearing you guys. Definitely fruit and vegetables. So these are the things that cause fullness. If we're only eating white flour, white sugar, and processed carbs, we're not going to feel satiety and we're going to continue to feel hungry. And that's why a lot of people overeat. When we get the healthy nutrients, our hunger will calm down and we will stop eating. So this slide here, I think there's a picture of it in a moment, but this just tells you a little bit more of what I was talking about. The hypothalamus controls your hunger. And it tells you when to eat or when not to eat is controlled by your hypothalamus. The hypothalamus gets signals from your nerves, from hormones, and from the amount of food you eat and the type of food you eat, where I should put actually nutrients we eat. So the hypothalamus is gathering information from your nerves, your hormones, and the amount of food and the type of nutrients you eat. And then it decides if we should continue to eat or if we have satiety and we should stop eating. Let's look a little bit into the hormones. We already know about insulin and glucagon. There are a few others. Go ahead, is there a question? Question or comment?
We can't see the visual again.
Why is it doing that? It is so weird. don't know what. Please cut me off if that happens again. Because you see I'm not doing anything to stop it. All right. Why do we feel the urge to eat? Okay. So I talked to you about the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus gathers information from your nerve cells, from hormones, and from the amount of food and the type of nutrients. So it gets all this information, and then your hypothalamus decides, do we have satiety? Should we stop eating? Or should I keep hunger high and tell them to keep eating? Again, if we're eating lots of processed carbs, your brain will continue to say, we're hungry, we're hungry, we're hungry, keep eating. Even though you may have a large amount of food in your stomach, if it's only processed flour and sugar, we're going to still feel hungry. Now, I wanted to zone in here on these hormones, and it is very important that you can see their names. We already know about insulin and glucagon. When insulin is present, it kind of shuts off our hunger. When glucagon is present, it would make sense that that would stimulate our hunger. But there's others. Ghrelin causes hunger. This is the name of the hormone and what it does. So when we eat, ghrelin actually goes down. And as we go further away from the time we finish eating, it'll start to rise again. And when there is a rise in ghrelin, that will tell your brain to start eating. CCK causes satiety. After we eat, this CCK hormone goes up, okay, and tells us stop eating. Another one that you may have heard about in the past, and this is an important one, I think, it's called leptin. This one causes us satiety. It causes us to feel full. When we eat, this hormone called leptin is typically released from fat cells, and it signals your brain to stop eating. Why it's important is there are some people that it doesn't work with. It just doesn't work in the person, I should say. So they're eating, they're eating, they're eating. Leptin is being secreted, but they still are hungry. Even if they're eating the right kind of food, they still always feel hungry. A person whose leptin isn't working right really never gets satiety, so they tend to overeat. They were researching this with something that you may have heard of in the news called like the obesity gene. Why, and is it true that there is in person's genetics that there is a causative relationship to obesity? We can see in certain families, people may tend to be overweight. Perhaps some of it is nurture, their habits, their family and cultural habits, but some of it could be this nature. And one theory that they're investigating is that the leptin isn't working right. They're not feeling satiety because leptin isn't working, okay? And that's when you hear that word obesity gene, that's what they're talking about. There's a little bit more about that in your textbook. Okay, so hunger, remember, is the quiz question. Hunger is physiological, all controlled by your systems of the body. Appetite is psychological, and here's some of the things that influence that. This happened to me just the other day. I was completely full, had my satiety, and somebody comes with a dessert. And you're like, ooh, that looks really good, smells really good, I'm going to eat it anyway, right? So this is called appetite more than the hunger. Okay, I'm going to take a break, and you are going to watch a 2-minute video on appetite and hunger from your textbook.
Determine whether you feel hunger or satiety.
I want to start that over.
A number of factors determine whether you feel hunger or satiety. These factors include signals from your brain, chemicals produced throughout your body, and even the type and amount of food you eat. The major organ responsible for affecting your sensation of hunger or satiety is the brain. The region within the brain that determines the sensation is called the hypothalamus. It triggers hunger by integrating signals from nerves throughout your body. One such signal comes from the stomach and the small intestinal tract. If you have not eaten for several hours, the cells lining the stomach and small intestine perceive emptiness and send a sensory signal to the brain that it is time to eat and you feel hunger. When you eat, the cells perceive fullness and send the signal that you are full or satiated. Blood glucose levels also provide feedback to the hypothalamus. When you eat a carbohydrate-rich food, your blood sugar levels rise, which in turn stimulate the release of insulin from the pancreas. The hypothalamus is stimulated by insulin to signal a sense of fullness or satiety. When your blood sugar levels drop, glucagon stimulates the breakdown of glycogen to raise blood glucose as well as the hypothalamus to signal hunger. A variety of other hormones signal the hypothalamus to stimulate you to feel hungry or satiated. Examples of hormone or hormone-like substances secreted from the hypothalamus that stimulate appetite include neuropeptide Y, ghrelin, and galanin. 3 examples of hormones which stimulate satiety in the hypothalamus include bombesin and cholecystokinin from the gastrointestinal tract and leptin from fat cells. The amounts and type of food you eat can also affect your hunger and satiety levels. Protein has the highest satiety value, stimulating a feeling of fullness longer than fat. Carbohydrates have the lowest satiety value of the energy nutrients. Understanding the relationship between food, hormones, and the brain will help individuals control their appetite and hunger.
One thing I want to add to that last part is fiber. I think they should have said fiber also helps control that appetite. I think if they omit that, it's kind of misleading. Okay, so are we good with hunger and appetite? Any questions on those 2 things? What happens when we eat food? The gastrointestinal system, we will abbreviate it GI, has 3 processes: digestion, absorption, elimination. Digestion is breaking things down. So when we have carbs, it gets broken down into glucose. When we have protein, it gets broken down. Oh, tell me, are we losing the screen again?
We can't see anything.
Did you see the video?
Half of it.
Ugh. All right. Sorry, guys. I have no idea what's going on with this Collaborate today. All right. What happens when we eat food? Digestion, absorption, and elimination are 3 processes of the GI system. Digestion is breaking things down. So I was saying carbs get broken down into glucose, protein gets broken down into amino acids, and fat gets broken down into glycerol and fatty acids. Okay, remember we said what is the molecule or what is the nutrient made of? When we're digesting, we're breaking the nutrient down into its smaller components. This typically starts to occur in your mouth and it continues in your stomach. Once it leaves the stomach, then what we have is in the small intestine, we have something called absorption. We are actually taking the nutrients into the blood. That's what absorption is. We're taking the molecules of food or the nutrients from the small intestine into the blood circulation. And then elimination is getting rid of the waste products. So this is happening in your gastrointestinal system. When we absorb the nutrients, those nutrients are used by your metabolism, coming up in a couple of weeks, we'll study metabolism, to create ATP. So the food, particularly glucose and fat, are changed into ATP. And we're using that ATP for energy. Adenosine triphosphate is what the abbreviation for ATP is. Okay. So here is the sequence of organ, and then we'll talk about the function that it does. Mouth, epiglottis will close so that food goes down your esophagus, goes into your stomach. There's 2 sphincters. They're one-way valves. One going into your stomach called the cardiac sphincter, and then one leaving your stomach called the pyloric sphincter. From your stomach, it goes in the small intestine, then the large intestine. The end of the large intestine is your colon, your rectum, and then your anus. So that is the sequence of order. So here's one of the first ones. The first part of the digestive system or the GI system is your salivary glands. On here you can see they are colored yellow. Now remember, on my instructor notes, every single part of this GI system, you will see the word like salivary glands and what it does. So refer back to those instructor notes. After I'm done with the sequence of organs, we will watch a video and it will animate and show you food going down the GI system. So here's your salivary glands. They are in yellow. This is where your spit comes out of, guys. They secrete this liquid that has, you're not seeing it again, right? Cut out. I hope this is the only day this does it to us. Thank you for telling me. I don't want to be teaching if you can't see nothing. Okay. Salivary glands. Do you see them here in yellow? Submandibular gland, sublingual gland, and parotid gland. Do you see them?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. They're secreting your spit, right? It's liquid that has enzymes in it. Those enzymes actually start to break down carbohydrates. So as soon as you put that food in your mouth, we're starting carbohydrate digestion right away from your salivary glands. We're chewing. Did it cut out again?
No, you're good.
We're chewing, and that manual chewing is also breaking down the food clearly into smaller pieces so that we can swallow it. So here's a little slide I want to show you. So we're chewing in our mouth, still called food till we swallow. Once we swallow, then it's called that bolus. And in here it looks is green. Maybe let's pretend it's spinach. All right, so what happens is you have two pipes. When you were kids, we always used to say maybe something went down the wrong pipe. If you were maybe talking or running around and eating, sometimes you are, even the water still as an adult might feel like it's going down the wrong pipe. There's two pipes. One is your esophagus. That pipe goes to your stomach. The other pipe is your trachea, and that pipe goes to your lungs. We only want food and water to go down the esophagus. So when we swallow, we have this little flap of skin called your epiglottis. The epiglottis will close the trachea off so that food can only go down the esophagus. We don't want anything getting in that trachea. That's choking, okay? So this is the relationship between this epiglottis and the two pipes. Yes?
We lost it again.
Thank you. Very frustrating. All right. So you can see the two pipes, your esophagus, trachea, and then the epiglottis. The epiglottis blocks the trachea so we don't choke. The food, excuse me, I should say bolus. The bolus now will travel down that esophagus, and here you see the end of the esophagus, past this one-way valve. It's a little flap of skin. It's called the cardiac sphincter, just because it's near the heart. That's why it's named cardiac. It has no relationship really other than that to the cardiac system. The bolus will go in from the esophagus into the stomach. Now, in the stomach's primary function is to churn and grind food. We already learned that carbohydrates begin digestion in your mouth. In your stomach, we have carbohydrate digestion and now protein digestion. Proteins will get broken down into their amino acid parts in the stomach. We have hydrochloric acid and we have pepsin in your stomach. They're fluid, they're liquid in your stomach. The stomach secretes them. This is called hydrochloric acid and pepsin. It will break down protein into amino acids. In addition, it just kind of breaks up the food. Just like your teeth broke up the food in your mouth, we're going to continue that process of manual breaking it down in your stomach. The bolus will then leave your stomach through another one-way valve called your pyloric sphincter. Once it leaves this, it's called chyme now. And the chyme will then enter your small intestine, and it is true, it's very long, supposedly 10 feet long if we stretched it all out. We want our small intestine to be long because we want maximum absorption of nutrients. Absorption occurs in the small intestine, where these blood vessels go into the small intestine to take out the nutrients. So these blood vessels will stick into that small intestine. They will pick up carbs, they want to pick up fiber, they want to pick up vitamins and minerals, water, protein, and fat. Now, the carb digestion began in your mouth. The protein digestion began in your stomach. Fat digestion finally begins in your small intestine. We use a substance called bile to break down fat. So remember, in your mouth, the salivary enzymes break down carbs. In your stomach, that pepsin and hydrochloric acid breaks down protein. It will break down carbs as well. Not until the small intestine does bile start breaking down fat. So that's how long that fat is pretty much intact. And that's why it feels fuller when we eat protein and fat versus the carbs, because it lasts longer in the system. But the primary thing I want you to know about the small intestine is absorption. This small intestine is my favorite organ because the blood vessels finally take up the important nutrients out of the GI system into the circulatory system. Then they're going to go where they're needed. Carbs are going to go where they're needed. Glucose is being brought around. Proteins being brought around, the amino acids, the vitamins, the minerals. It's circulating now finally out of the GI and into the system of the body. Okay, then we leave the small intestine and we enter the large intestine, which is smaller in length, but wider. The large intestine is wider, that's why it's large. And we have different parts of it, but the primary function of this large intestine is to reabsorb nutrients and to hold waste. So what the large intestine is doing is checking to see, did the small intestine miss anything? The small intestine will absorb water, and then after that's used, send it back to the digestive system, to the GI system. We could reabsorb that water in the large intestine. So we're getting maximum use of these nutrients by reabsorbing it into the large intestine. That reabsorption really occurs in the ascending and transverse part. Once we get down to this descending, we're starting to store waste. This descending colon, anything you hear colon, that colon word means large intestine. It's the end of the large intestine. And here's where we're starting to store our waste up. It will be held in the rectum until the anus opens for elimination. Okay? I'm going to come back to that slide in a moment. I'm skipping a slide. We have gone through the sequence of GI system from mouth to anus. There are some supporting organs that help the GI system, and you see them on your slide now. Hopefully you see them. You still seeing them? My slides?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
See,
So one of the assisting organs is the liver. It makes bile. So we could break down fat in the small intestine. Another assisting organ is a gallbladder. This one actually stores the bile. So the liver will make the bile and send it to the gallbladder. Your gallbladder will store bile. When the body eats fat, the gallbladder will kind of squeeze and push that bile into the small intestine. And then that bile will start breaking down fat. Now, if people get their gallbladder removed, and this might be one digestive condition you might be interested in researching, we get the gallbladder removed because sometimes it's infected and it has to be taken out so that infection doesn't spread. The liver will then make and store bile. So the liver starts to take on the job of that gallbladder. The problem is it doesn't do a good job just sending a little bit when you eat fat. So the gallbladder will squeeze and send the amount that you need over. The liver will send it all. As soon as it senses fat in your small intestine, the liver sends everything. Well, what ends up happening then is the person will get diarrhea if this gallbladder is removed and they eat a lot of fat. So typically we'll tell people who have no gallbladder, go on a lower fat diet and tend to eat the healthier fats that are needed. Really stay away from like the saturated fats or fats that are not really essential for functioning. We have the bile duct. That's just this little tube-like thing that goes into the small intestine. And then we have the pancreas. You already know what the pancreas does. The pancreas will create insulin and glucagon. It will send the insulin and glucagon when carbohydrate metabolism is needed. When we have a rise in blood glucose, it sends insulin. When we have low blood glucose, it will send glucagon. And those two hormones of insulin and glucagon will regulate how much glucose is in the bloodstream. So that's the overview of the digestive system. Now, there's still two things I want to do. I want to go over a little bit more of the large intestine, and then I'm going to show you, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to actually show you the video of the digestive system now. Then we're going to backtrack because there's one thing that I want you to know about the large intestine is that it has bacteria in it that is healthy bacteria. We mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we're going to talk about gut bacteria in the large intestine today. Let's first look at the overview of digestion. Somebody raise their hand. I'll hear the bing if you lose video.
To be utilized by the body, it must first be broken.
And you see the video right now, is that correct?
Have you ever wondered what happens to the food
Yep.
you eat?
Yes.
To be utilized by the body, it must first be broken down into individual components, which are then absorbed into the blood. This process, called digestion, involves both mechanical and chemical transformations of the food and begins in the mouth. The transformation begins with chewing, a mechanical process also known as mastication. While the teeth cut and grind the food, increasing the surface area and exposing the bonds, the food is mixed with digestive juices from the salivary glands called saliva. Saliva moistens the food and begins the chemical digestion of carbohydrates. While chewing continues, the epiglottis is open and the esophagus closed to allow you to breathe while you chew. When the food is soft and moist, it is time to swallow. As the food, now called a bolus, moves to the back of the mouth, the brain temporarily closes the epiglottis to prevent food from entering the trachea. The soft palate also rises to seal off our nasal passages to prevent aspiration of food or liquid into the sinuses. As the trachea closes, the esophagus opens, allowing the bolus to be swallowed to the esophagus to the stomach by way of muscular contractions called peristalsis. As the bolus nears the end of the esophagus, a muscle called the gastroesophageal sphincter relaxes to allow the food into the stomach. This J-shaped organ has been waiting for its arrival by secreting gastric juices containing hydrochloric acid, HCl, and enzymes pepsin and gastric lipase, which quickly digest proteins and fats. The secretion of mucus protects the stomach lining from the acid and protein enzymes. In addition to the chemical breakdown of the nutrients, mechanical digestion continues by mixing and churning the bolus until it becomes a liquid called chyme and is ready to enter the duodenum. Once the chyme has been thoroughly mixed with the digestive juices, it passes through the pyloric sphincter and enters the duodenum. The presence of chyme in the duodenum stimulates two important accessory organs, the gallbladder and the pancreas, which assist but are not directly involved in the digestion process. As fat enters the duodenum, the gallbladder contracts, secreting a greenish fluid called bile, which emulsifies the fat, breaking it into smaller particles. The pancreas secretes enzymes specifically designed to digest carbohydrates, proteins, and fats found in the chyme. Further chemical digestion aided by enzymes located on the small intestine complete the process of digestion. The sandwich you ate has now been processed into a liquid that contains nutrient molecules small enough to be absorbed. As the chyme moves along the small intestine via peristalsis, the nutrients encounter absorptive cells in the intestinal lining. The specialized lining is composed of thousands of finger-like projections called villi. The cells covering the villi end in hair-like structures called microvilli that together form the brush border and increase the surface area. Nutrients enter the body by passing through the cells of the brush border and then flow through the capillaries or the lymph fluid to the cells in the body. Undigested or unabsorbed nutrients and other compounds from the sandwich you ate enter the large intestine through the ileocecal valve. As the waste material enters the cecum, they mix with intestinal bacteria, which digest some remaining materials. As chyme
We
travels
can't
through
see the
the
video.
and other chemicals are absorbed.
Did you see it up until that point? Because I'll rewind it a bit.
Yeah, it like cut off like right now.
Okay. Okay. We'll just back up a little bit. So we're entering the large intestine now.
Waste material enters the cecum. They mix with intestinal bacteria, which digest some remaining materials. As chyme travels through the colon, water and other chemicals are absorbed, forming a semi-solid mass called feces that is eventually eliminated through the rectum, the ultimate fate of the sandwich.
Good thing they stopped showing it then. We don't need to see the end part. Okay. So there you have the process of digestion from the digestion, the absorption, and the elimination. Any questions so far on the name of the organ or what it does? And on these slides, you can see I have the name of the organ and its primary function. I will have that in my notes as well, the instructor notes. And then as you read your textbook, it'll tell you more details on each organ and what it does. I wanted to talk a bit about gut bacteria. And there is a video that we'll watch on it as well. This is a really newer science that I just started learning about in grad school, that there are millions of bacteria in your large intestine. And I didn't know all their names, but I found this little image today with some of the names of the bacteria in our digestive system, and you can see a lot in this large intestine. These are your good guys. Don't think of bacteria always as bad. Gut bacteria is good bacteria. They are there to help your body survive. And we would think that they play a role in digestion. They also play a role in your immune system, in fighting any kind of disease you may have. They certainly play a role in the health of your digestive system, but also they will help fight colds and COVID and flu and any kind of pathogen that might get into your system. It is very important to keep these bacteria alive and working well. So one thing I want to talk to you about is what will feed the gut bacteria to keep it healthy and what kills gut bacteria that we probably could avoid. So what the gut bacteria eats is fiber. If we provide the body a lot of fiber, the gut bacteria will stay happy and healthy. It will help with digestion. It will prevent lots of stomach and belly aches and digestive problems. It will help with the immunity of your overall body. We lost it? Or is it a question?
Yeah, we can't see anything.
Ah, all right. So as I'm reconnecting, think, what is the job of the gut bacteria? Who can tell me that? Why is it so important to have millions of bacteria in your large intestine? Anybody remember what I just said? Think of two words: digestion and immunity. So clearly the gut bacteria help with digestion, but also the immune system. The bacteria helps run that immune system properly. So we want to feed it fiber. If it doesn't get fiber, it starts dying. When we lose gut bacteria, typically people start to get stomach aches. They will feel pain in their stomach. They may have constipation. They may have diarrhea. Yes.
So I take probiotics every
Uh-huh.
day. Now, are you supposed to take prebiotics to help feed the bacteria?
I always get these two confused.
Okay.
One is the
So
precursor.
do I.
Yeah. I mean, I look this up every semester. It's just that one thing my brain can't remember. One is the precursor, and one is the actual biotic that helps feed it. Clearly, the prebiotics must be the precursor to turn into a probiotic.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
That would make sense. Yeah. So, and here it says probiotics are bacteria and yeasts that help your digestive system. The bacteria need these probiotics to survive. They're a little bit different than fiber, but the bacteria does need both the probiotic and the fiber to survive. I believe the prebiotic is something that eventually will turn into a probiotic in the human body. I'll
Okay.
get back to you guys on that. But yes, you know, the probiotics will help the gut bacteria. Some people think increase in number, but some people think it's just to stop the loss of gut bacteria. But either way, it's to help the health of these things survive. Hopefully that what you're eating, and whether it be a supplemental pill or sometimes you could get it like in yogurt or fermented foods, hopefully that makes it way all the way down into the intestine, because think about it, has to pass enzymes and acid in the stomach and pepsin. It has to pass through all of this before it gets to the large intestine. So they're still studying to see how much of these probiotics will make it from the outside world to the large intestine. I would say probably some of them do, maybe not all of it. So let's say you eat the whole yogurt. I'm not sure all the probiotics in that reach the large intestine. Some may be killed off by the acid and enzymes of the body.
Yeah,
But
that's what my doctor told me. Like maybe take the probiotic 30 minutes before you eat, just so the acid doesn't, kill it all off.
Yeah, interesting. So we just don't know the whole details of that. But that's probably a good idea to take it while you're not like having a larger meal. Unless, of course, it's in something like yogurt or,
Yeah.
I said fermented foods. They say that kombucha or sauerkraut, things like that also have the probiotics in it. But if you guys, do you know of any other foods that have the probiotics in it? Or is it just so you're doing supplements?
I'm trying to think.
Can't you find it in yogurt?
Yeah. Now my screen kind of froze on me here. Let me look something up. Let's look it up.
I know
Foods
like sauerkraut has it, some cheese have it.
I like my images.
I never really put attention to probiotics. I didn't know that
Yeah.
they were like important for our body.
It is. It is important, and think about it, it's not just for digestion. It's also for, and we're going to show a video in a moment, but also for the immunity and health of all the systems of your body, not just the digestive system. It's in a lot of foods that we typically don't find in our culture, but in other cultures. Miso, here it says fermented veggies, kombucha.
I see
Isn't it
tempeh has
basically
it.
oh,
Go ahead.
like in a lot of things that are either fermented or cultured, like
Yes.
they have them in there.
Yeah. In this image here, I do use apple cider vinegar quite a bit. It says with the mother in it. That actually looks like solid pieces of something floating in your apple cider vinegar. That's what has the probiotics in it.
Now, are the apple cider vinegar like little gummies? Are those good, or should we stick with, like the regular apple cider vinegar?
Well, I'm going to have to just go with what I know. So the supplements aren't regulated. So the answer is I really don't know. I wish these people are telling us the truth with the supplements.
Yeah.
I'd hope to say, yes, it's in there, but I'm not sure. I would hate to say that a person selling us supplements is lying to us. I just can't. I don't know. I take supplements, right? I take vitamins. I take minerals. I have migraines. Actually, I had a chiropractor recommend probiotics for my migraines once.
Interesting.
I could see it in the food though, so I know it's in that apple cider vinegar. If it's a natural food, I would assume that it's in that as well. But I did take probiotic supplements for my migraines at one point to help overall health. And the good thing about foods really is that there's no bad side effects. Like if we take a medicine, there might be a side effect with that medicine. But if we eat a food, unless you're allergic to it, there's no downside. So I've actually, when I drink water, I tell you guys I drink my little super juice. It's got water, lemon or lime juice, raw honey, and I'll sometimes put ginger. Sometimes I put a shot of apple cider vinegar in it too. It doesn't make it tasty to me. I actually like it, but just to get a little bit of those probiotics as well. But don't forget, in addition to the probiotics, lots of fiber will feed this gut bacteria. So let's look at this video. Now there's millions of gut bacteria. I wanted to comment real quick. Besides lack of fiber or probiotics, that will kill them. Antibiotics, it makes sense. Antibiotics kill your gut bacteria. Now, if you need the antibiotic for an illness, you have to take it because you don't want that bad bacteria to overcome your whole system. But realize every time you take a prescription of antibiotics, some of these gut bacteria may die. That's why they tell you when you get a prescription for antibiotic, you might get diarrhea. Once these gut bacteria start dying, it does cause a bit of diarrhea. All right. Now, the unfortunate thing is when the gut bacteria dies, again, research is telling me it really doesn't grow back. So once you start losing them, you really can't get more. And the less we have, the less immune system our body will work, right? We'll have a lowered immunity to any disease. So we want to maintain this for digestive health, but also the health of the whole body. Let's watch the video and then tell me if you've got questions. Also, please tell me if this video cuts out.
That face
I can't do anything.
Okay.
has finally made an appearance.
Perfect timing because it's before the actual video started. So let's hope we could get through the whole video.
Trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi live on or inside of us, and maintaining a good, balanced relationship with them is to our advantage. Together, they form the gut microbiome, a rich ecosystem that performs a variety of functions in our bodies. The bacteria in our guts can break down food the body can't digest, produce important nutrients, regulate the immune system, and protect against harmful germs. We don't yet have the blueprint for exactly which good bacteria a robust gut needs, but we do know that it's important for a healthy microbiome microbiome to have a variety of bacterial species. Many factors affect our microbiomes, including our environment, medications like antibiotics, and even whether we were delivered by C-section or not. Diet, too, is emerging as one of the leading influences on the health of our guts. And while we can't control all these factors, we can manipulate the balance of our microbes by paying attention to what we eat. Dietary fiber from foods like fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, and whole grains is the best fuel for gut bacteria. When bacteria digest fiber, they produce short-chain fatty acids that nourish the gut barrier, improve immune function, and can help prevent inflammation, which reduces the risk of cancer. And the more fiber you ingest, the more fiber-digesting bacteria colonize your gut. In a recent study, scientists exchanged the regular high-fiber diets of a group of rural South Africans with the high-fat, meat-heavy diets of a group of African Americans. After just 2 weeks on the high-fat, low-fiber, Western-style diet, the rural African group showed increased inflammation of the colon as well as a decrease of butyrate. That's a short-chain fatty acid thought to lower risk of colon cancer. Meanwhile, the group that switched to a high-fiber, low-fat diet had the opposite result. So what goes wrong with our gut bacteria when we eat low-fiber processed foods? Lower fiber means less fuel for the gut bacteria, essentially starving them until they die off. This results in less diversity and hungry bacteria. In fact, some can even start to feed on the mucus lining. We also know that specific foods can affect gut bacteria. In one recent microbiome study, scientists found that fruits, vegetables, tea, coffee, red wine, and dark chocolate were correlated with increased bacterial diversity. These foods contain polyphenols, which are naturally occurring antioxidant compounds. On the other hand, foods high in dairy fat, like whole milk, and sugar-sweetened sodas were correlated with decreased diversity. How food is prepared also matters. Minimally processed, fresh foods generally have more fiber and provide better fuel. So lightly steamed, sautéed, or raw vegetables are typically more beneficial than fried dishes. There are also ways of preparing food that actually introduce good bacteria, also known as probiotics, into your gut. Fermented foods are teeming with helpful probiotic bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. Originally used as a way of preserving foods before the invention of refrigeration, fermentation remains a traditional practice all over the world. Foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, tempeh, and kombucha provide variety and vitality to our diets. Yogurt is another fermented food that can introduce helpful bacteria into our guts. That doesn't necessarily mean that all yogurt is good for us, though. Brands with too much sugar and not enough bacteria may not actually help. These are just general guidelines. More research is needed before we fully understand exactly how any of these foods interact with our microbiomes. We see positive correlations, but the insides of our guts are difficult places to make direct observations. For instance, we don't currently know whether these foods are directly responsible for the changes in diversity, or if something more complicated is happening. While we're only beginning to explore the vast wilderness inside our guts, we already have a glimpse of how crucial our microbiomes are for digestive health. The great news is we have the power to fire up the bacteria in our bellies. Fill up on fibers, fresh and fermented foods, and you can trust your gut to keep you going strong.
Okay, I like that video. Hopefully you learned a bit about the gut bacteria today, and how important it is to keep alive. But the thing is, we already knew what foods are healthy for us. It's the same foods again. It's the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains. Now we also hear of the probiotic foods and the fermented foods. Now, there are more videos on gut bacteria in the learning module. If you're interested, I actually have a couple articles in the learning module. Let me get to that. Once you get to here, video of the learning modules, I have more. We're going to actually watch this one in class Thursday morning how your digestive system works. But there's a couple articles on gut bacteria in here. Bacteria in the gut may hold the key to many diseases, how to keep your gut bacteria healthy. This is the one we just watched today. This is 4 surprising things about your gut bacteria. Is there a secret to healthy gut bacteria? This was a native tribe in South Africa. It's called the Hadza diet. And this is some of the foods they were eating. And the reason I put this on here is we were investigating these people's food intake in a class I called Culture and Food that I teach. And a lot of it is root vegetables or things that come directly off of trees, which you can see in this image. Very, very, I actually had a bigger image here, I think. Very, very high fiber foods. They have the healthiest gut bacteria in the world. And then we investigated what kind of foods they eat. And it looks a lot different than the kind of foods in a Western diet that are processed. So I just thought that's really interesting, and it's kind of drives the point of, you know, the higher fiber, the better for our gut. So there's a couple resources for you there if you want to learn more about gut bacteria and the digestive system. Now, let's get to your homework for Thursday. What you will do for Thursday is digestive disorders. I want you to pick 2 or more, so minimum 2. You're going to do 1 disorder for the discussion question. The reason I want you guys to pick 2 is I want to make sure we don't leave any of these out. So look at your screen now. There's a bunch of digestive disorders. What you're going to do is write down the definition of the disorder. What else did I have here? The definition of it. Give me a second here. The cause of it, and then treatment or prevention. So look at the slide, write a couple of them down. Now, if there's one that's not on this slide, you could tell me now before you leave that you want to do it, and I will let you do that. I just kind of write down the most common ones that I could think of. So pick 2 of these. If you pick cancer, I do want it to be gastrointestinal cancer, so you could do like colon cancer, stomach cancer, esophageal cancer, one of those cancers. You could do any of these. Pick 2 or more. This slide will be in the PowerPoint if you need to reference it once you leave class today. You don't have to tell me which 2 you're going to do. I'm going to hope that we got about 18 people regularly coming that we're going to cover all of these. So what will happen on Thursday is I'll just call your name from the attendance sheet, and I'll say, which digestive disorder would you like to go over? And then you'll say the name, the cause, and then treatment or prevention options. Should only take you about a minute. You don't have to do a whole presentation. If there's one on here that you do not see that you want to do, you can tell me now, or you can email me later. I'm trying to get back to my screen.
Is the questions you want us to answer, is it on the module?
It's actually the PowerPoint, and I can show you that again. Can you see the screen? Here.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can jot this down. What am I doing here? Bold print it here, make it a little bigger. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to do the name of it, the definition, the cause, and then treatment or prevention options. Okay, and I'm going to post this PowerPoint so you can refer back to it if needed. What we're going to find with a lot of these disorders is the cause and the treatment are very similar. If we pick something like diarrhea, constipation, heartburn, GERD, ulcers, what we're going to find is diets that are not so healthy or individuals that use certain drugs have more of these problems than people who have healthier diets and abstain from drug usage. But, you know, we'll get into each one of these, and then we'll come up with a comprehensive list of what we can do to kind of prevent them. Questions? We're still sharing the screen. So once you wrote down which 2 you want to do, you guys, as long as you were here when the presentation started, you are free to go. if you were late and I need to mark you down, then you can raise your hand. Otherwise, you guys can go. And on Thursday, what we'll do is we'll quickly review digestion, and then we will go through your quick presentations on digestive disorders. So have a good day. Odie, I do see that you're here. I mark you down. Talea?
Yes, hi. Unfortunately, I lost connection for a minute and I missed like pretty much everything that you said about the presentation. The last thing I heard was colon cancer.
Oh, okay. So let me share my screen. So I just told them, let me make sure here. Yeah. In the PowerPoint is what you're going to be doing. Let's see, where is it here? So you're going to pick 2 digestive disorders, write down their name, the definition of the disorder, the cause of the disorder, and then treatment or prevention option. Okay.
Okay.
And the thing about cancer is if you pick cancer, make sure it's one of the digestive cancers like mouth, esophagus, stomach, or colon, if you do choose cancer. I did tell the class if they wanted to do a disorder that they don't see here, that's okay. Just tell me the name of it. I just wrote down the most common ones, but certainly if there's a different digestive disorder you want to cover, you could tell me now or you can email me before Thursday.
Okay. Okay.
So just two or more, but yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Have a great day.
You too. Odie? Okay.